Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. We will get started shortly, but I'd like to give people a few more moments to get their audio preferences settled before we begin. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Before I hand it off to our presenters, I just want to cover a few technical details in case you haven't joined the ACRO webinar in the past. We use Zoom webinar, which is similar to Zoom meeting, except that your cameras and your microphones are disabled by default to interact with other presenters and with each other. You have two main options for discussion and general comments. You can use the chat button. This defaults to hosts and panelists. And if you want to message everyone, make sure to hit everyone on the drop-down menu. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the Q&A section by clicking the Q&A button. You can ask questions anonymously, and you can view and comment on existing questions, and you can ask questions at any time. And now, with any further ado, let's hand it off to our hosts.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julia Funaki, the Director of International at ACRO, and I am delighted to be here to welcome you all to the February edition of the EDGE User Group. Today, we're going to get started. Our hosts are Drew Carlisle, myself, and Jasmine Saidi-Cooner. Jasmine serves as the chair of our International Education Standards Council. She's also the CEO and the founder of the Academic Credential Evaluation Institute. We are delighted to have her as well as several other IESC members here with us today. Those members include Leslie Clausen-Eicher, Emily Say, and Robert Watkins. And if we go on to the next slide, you can see the whole array of the IESC members. And really the IESC, we utilize their expertise on looking at components of different of the profiles in EDGE and updating us with advice and new details and revising any information that needs to be revised. This is a voluntary role, and we are really grateful to have them here and very lucky to have people with such wonderful experience. So we go to the next slide, you can see just what I'm talking about. So the IESC members that I just talked about are composed from representatives from both public and private institutions. They have years and years of experience. And as I said, they collect the research, they review, they prepare, they approve and vet different components of the EDGE profiles that you see. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. What's changed? What are some updates that there might be? And they also work forward in those placement recommendations that we have in ACRO EDGE. So without further ado, let's get into the real meat of this. And let's start with a poll, which is always one of our favorite places to start, just to find out who's with us and where you're all hailing from. So we have a two-question poll. The first question is, are you an EDGE subscriber? And is this your first EDGE user group? I guess it's three questions. Is this your first EDGE user group? And then what segment do you represent? Are you from an institution, an evaluation service company, the government, a law firm, etc.? We'll give you a couple of minutes, just a minute to go ahead and answer these questions. Hello from Georgia. Where else? People, please feel free to chat where you're from. Hi, Ina. It's always good to have you on here as well.
You know, Julia, you were talking about where do people hail from. Lois mentioned that it's snowing over in Colorado right now.
Oh, what about Sault Ste.
there.
Marie? Oh, Kansas City, where they're still celebrating. Oh, it's great to have you guys. The Mitten State. All right, wonderful. Are you an EDGE subscribers? Rock on, guys. 100% of you are EDGE subscribers. Next time, bring a friend along and get them to subscribe. We're glad to have you here. Is this your first EDGE user group? 10 of you said yes. Awesome. We're glad you're here. We hope you come back the next time. 84% of you have been here before, though, and you know it's a great place to hang out. And then what segment do you represent? Well, 90% of you, or the vast majority of you, are from an institution, and we have a few of you coming from an evaluation service. We're glad to have you here with us as well. All right, then let's go without further ado into our agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to Drew for that.
Thanks, Julia. So today we are going to talk about a few updates that have taken place within Edge since we last spoke. If you were here last time, you'll recall that I was stuck in a library because I was having internet issues. Luckily today, my fingers are crossed, I have not had any of those. But if anything does happen, just know that I wish I was here with you, and I'm really enjoying our monthly get-togethers. But next month, we're actually not going to be getting together here at our regularly scheduled same bat time, same bat channel. We've got the ACRO annual meeting. It's in Aurora, Colorado. And we are going to be having a live session there that's going to be taking place. And so next month only, we're going to go ahead and take a respite from doing the monthly Edge user group and just come see us in Colorado instead, or stay in your chair and we'll be right back here in April. But for today, we're going to be talking about what we have done in Denmark, the Netherlands, up north of us in Quebec, over to the east or west, depending on which way you're going to go, in Bangladesh, and another little bit of information about the Enlightenment route. That was something that we got a lot of good feedback about just having some quick little answers. So I've got an idea that we'll go over with you. Let's not delay anymore. You've been here before. As Edge subscribers, let's get into some of the details about what we're doing. Jasmine, to Denmark.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Greetings. It's 59 degrees here in West LA, mostly cloudy, but very pleasant. So I'm sorry for those of you who are going through the blizzards and the cold. I wish we could send you some of our warm weather. Here we are in Denmark. Drew challenged me to pronounce the credential in Danish, but I tried, but I'm going to save face and not butcher this beautiful, lengthy credential. So this was a document that my organization received, ACEI, and we had done our research. We submitted our evaluation and the education equivalence, but when I came to look into our Edge profile on Denmark, I found that this credential was missing. So that's kind of one of the many things that we even on the IASC will do. We will roll up our sleeves and take a deep dive in, do the research, and present our findings to the members of the IASC for their review and approval. So a little bit about this credential, which you will find already posted on Edge Denmark. This is a certificate of veterinary nurse. So if you see this credential, you may assume that it is a post-secondary program, but that is not the case. It is part of Denmark's vocational education training system, and it requires completion of 9 or 10 years of prior schooling, meaning 9th grade or 10th grade for admission to this program. The duration of this program is 3 years and 9 months. 60 weeks of it is dedicated to formal education, and 116 weeks of it is on-the-job training. Our placement recommendation was to assess this as comparable to education that is at a vocational or specialized high school. So we do not recognize any advanced standing credit for this. We don't view this as a post-secondary award because of the minimum criteria for admission, which is either 9 or 10 years of prior schooling. And what does this allow the person to do in Denmark? It allows them to, of course, enter the workforce in this particular field, or they can continue in other vocational programs, vocational education training programs. So it does not give direct access to university education. It is primarily a vocational program at the upper secondary level. So that's it for Denmark. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Back to the previous slide. Excellent. We received an Edge user query about the medical degree in the Netherlands and that it was missing from Edge. So we took a look at this, and in fact, it did have the arts degree, the 6-year arts, ARTS program, but that soon changed. The arts is Dutch for physician. So it was just 1 degree lasting full 6 years at a university. And as many of you know, there was the Bologna process where most European countries joined, and they introduced the bachelor, master, and actually doctor structure into their higher education system. So the question was whether or not this also impacted the medical degrees. We can say that with the exception of a few, maybe a half a dozen countries, most places actually kept their long cycle degree for medicine rather than change it to and adapt it to the bachelor master structure. But Netherlands was not one of them. The Netherlands was actually a pioneer. On to the next slide. Thank you. And it was a pioneer, and it was actually the first country among the Bologna signatory countries to adopt a 2-cycle structure for medicine so that it became a bachelor and master in medicine. It was actually the University of Groningen that first did this in 2003 with the first graduates in 2009. And then eventually this was adopted by all 8 Dutch medical schools. On to the next slide. So what we have now as the current system, a 3-year bachelor in medicine or bachelor of science in medicine, and then the 3-year master of medicine or 3-year master of science in medicine. Or it may be referenced as geneeskunde, which means medicine in Dutch. Depending on the country that did adopt the 2-cycle structure, you might see a 4+2 or 3+3. In the Dutch case, it's a 3+3. So make no mistake, in order to enter the field as a physician and practice medicine, one must complete both degrees and receive the master in medicine. So when you see the first cycle bachelor, 180 ACTS credits, it will be more foundational as far as the subjects are concerned, your basic sciences, as well as some clinical education. And this will be regarded as comparable to 3 years of university study. And then again, to pursue medicine and practice in the field, students will have to continue on and then do the 3-year master, which is the second cycle, 180 ECTS credits again. And to no surprise, for this second degree, the focus is definitely much more clinical. And this would be regarded as comparable to the first professional degree in medicine. And what we have here on the left is the sample provided by the EDGE user who posed the question. So thank you for that. On to the next slide. So now we are in Quebec, Canada. What we did was we added the 4-year Bachelor of Engineering degree. But before I get into those details, we just want to give a snapshot of education in Quebec because it's different from the rest of the provinces and territories in Canada. In Quebec specifically, just again to give context, it's 6 years of primary school, then 5 years of secondary, leading to the DES, which is the French acronym for the Diploma of Secondary Education. Now, for those who want to continue on a university, they still have to do a 2-year program at a CEGEP. This is regarded pre-university studies, and it leads to the DEC, which is the French acronym for the Diploma of Collegiate Studies. So again, in order to enter the university and pursue a university degree, they have to complete a total of 13 years of education in Quebec, which is different from the other provinces where it's only 12 years of education. Okay, on to the next slide. So here we have the 4-year Bachelor of Engineering, which we've added into EDGE for Quebec. And so it's at the university and it's after the DEC. But as you can imagine, there may be students who enter the program that were schooled outside of Quebec and even outside of Canada. So for those who enter, there may be additional entry requirements or program requirements depending on the university in Quebec. So for example, those with the DEC may finish the program or have certain course requirements, and then those without the DEC, it may take them longer or they may have heavier course loads as an example. But at the end of the day, this is comparable to a US bachelor's degree, and the Bachelor of Engineering is called out because it's 4 years rather than the typical, more common 3-year bachelor's degree in Quebec. And that's it for Quebec. On to Bangladesh and Leslie.
Thank you, Emily. It was brought to our attention on ACRO's international activities listserv that someone had received something outside of what they considered to be and what ACRO had published in EDGE as the normal structure of education in Bangladesh. So we took a look at it and we found, sorry, I have lost my presentation. There we go. Sorry, hang with me here just a minute, guys. I've lost my Zoom presentation.
So this is one of those things that we really appreciate EDGE users for. When you identify these things, we really do like to get down deep into the weeds. As Leslie mentioned, this came directly from y'all, and we're gonna throw more props back out to you in just a little bit. Sorry to interrupt, Leslie.
No, perfect. It gave me time to find my place again. So yeah, we really appreciate when these queries come in. It gives us real life examples of what students are submitting to universities for their admissions applications. And in this case, the letter writer, the email writer on the listserv said that he had received a 4-year Bangladeshi bachelor's degree, followed by a 1-year master's degree. And he looked in EDGE and it looked to him like the bachelor's degree should be 3 years and the master's degree should be 1 year with a comparability of bachelor's degree. In fact, we realized that there had been an education change in Bangladesh back in 2010. The National Education Policy introduced 4-year bachelor's degrees. Those degrees, 4-year degrees had been in existence in the science and engineering fields and in business administration. But in this change in 2010, they introduced bachelor's honors degrees in other fields besides science, engineering, and business. Okay, so there's one change. There are now 4-year degrees in almost every, if not every, academic field in Bangladesh. Could you advance to the next slide, please? Thank you. So these degrees, the new ones, are honors degrees. They affect the master's degree that follows them. So just continuing on just a little bit more about the bachelor's degrees. Like I said, they have been introduced in non-science and engineering fields. They used to only be taught at universities, but now even the colleges will be teaching these 4-year honors degrees, and they will be replacing 3-year honors degrees. 3-year pass degrees replace the previous 2-year pass degrees. So there's a shift going on in Bangladesh. And if you go to the next slide, we'll look at how it affects master's degrees. Thank you. So master's degrees, the first one there, I'm not talking about the MPhil, but master's degrees can either be 1 year, and that would be for holders of an honors bachelor's degree, or they could be 2 years, and that would be for holders of that 3-year pass degree. So now the sequence is 4 + 1 or 3 + 2 for a total of 5. This sequence will be going into EDGE. It's not there just yet. We're just giving you the information here. The Master of Philosophy is a 2-year degree, and the PhD will continue to be 6 years from their date of registration. So things are shifting. If you remember, I said that this was a result of the 2010 National Education Policy. What? That's almost 13 years ago. We always say education changes slowly. So we are seeing this at probably a staggered and slower rate than you would expect. It wasn't necessarily that in 2010, this all happened at once. So just kind of be aware of that over time, the system changed. In my personal experience at Seattle U, we see primarily 4-year degrees from Bangladesh and 1-year masters. So yeah, that's it for Bangladesh today.
Thanks, Leslie. So as I alluded to a little while ago, we received a lot of positive feedback, with the enlightening rounds. It was one of those things that we've been able to, as we've been kind of streamlining our process with Edge. We've been figuring out better ways to collect all of the information that you guys are asking about. We've been figuring out better ways to get this into a faster pipeline where we're able to turn this around a little bit quicker. And as some of you are seeing, those that send in the complete submissions, we're able to do a lot more work on that a lot more quickly. Like, for example, some things that we will have coming up. There was a question that came in about a possible GED equivalent credential that has been issued in the Dominican Republic. This is something that we don't have reflected in Edge, and so we're going to, do that deep dive and go look into everything. That was a document that was submitted, and it was very helpful to get us started. We're going to do more work in Bangladesh. As Leslie mentioned, we haven't published all of this yet, but there have been questions that came in about the Master of Public Health and specifically the secondary, the 5.0 grading scale that's used in secondary. We had a sample of that came in as well. All of these documents really do help to move it along, and we want to give you more of this information that you will be able to keep track of even between the user groups when you bookmark all of the countries. So remember, when you submit those questions, bookmark those countries and you'll get notified when they come back in. Robert helped me, and I will not forget that this is Lesotho. Lesotho is the way to appropriately pronounce this country, and I apologize for the way I said it previously. Robert, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, Drew.
when we got the notice from a user that thanks for the information about this credential, but could you give us some information about the grading scale as well? We didn't put the grading scale in there, and so whoever reached out with the information on Lesotho, please send us that redacted copy, and we'll be able to look at that and include a sample of the document within Edge so that people in the future can see it as well. And then even things that might just be typos, we want you to talk about those too. In Burundi, we had a question come in from a user that she was looking at it, and Terry said, so I see that this grade that seems to be satisfactory is ranked with a US equivalence of an F. Is that appropriate? And whenever you run into questions like these, the IESC, we look at all of these grading scales, and they're arrived at by consensus, by looking at appropriate documents, by looking across the entire system, and then someone, probably me, typed it in incorrectly. I am sorry to any students that have been negatively impacted by that, and I am thankful to everyone that has pointed out a typo, because we really do want to reflect appropriate information for all the students. Speaking of reflecting appropriate information for students, everything that I've been talking about came together in this enlightening round request from someone, Ina Chasen, who we've been talking a little bit here on the chat, but oh yeah, it's from you, about what's going on in Nicaragua. Emily, would you tell us what's going on in Nicaragua?
Yes, that's actually the question. What is going on for the secondary credential in Nicaragua? Ina kindly inquired about the Bachiller in Ciencias y Letras and provided a beautiful redacted sample for us. And so we've begun taking a look at this. If you go to the Edge profile, it is not there. Instead, there are two different academic bachillers listed. A separate one in Ciencias and then a separate one in Humanidades. So we started looking around, and what's interesting is depending on which resource you go to, you'll find various, I guess, credential names for the high school credential. Many list just the generic bachiller by itself on its own. There are a few that list them separately, the one in sciences and then the one in humanities as reflected in Edge. But there are a few more that actually have this as one credential, referencing both sciences and letters, as Ina had submitted to us. So because we were getting conflicting information, we had to dig even further, of course. And it's important here and in any event to look at primary source evidence and materials. So we started looking at actual cases that we received in our office here at IERF, and it actually supports what Ina presented to us. At least for the last couple of decades, it's the one credential academic version that lists both sciences and letters. And we also checked on the Ministry of Education website for Nicaragua. So I think we're beginning to unravel this mystery, but we want to poke around a little bit more before making the final definitive decision, and then we'll get this squared away and put into the EDGE profile for Nicaragua. So thank you very much, Ina. This was indeed a mystery that needed serious investigation.
And so I'm going to tell on Emily just a little bit. This is the kind of thing that she was able to go in and dive deep into Spanish language, like literature, to try to find all this information, like going back and really doing the due diligence, because we want to be sure that this is accurate when we're putting it out there for you. As I mentioned, bookmark when you send in those questions for us, because then you're going to get notified. Lloyd, I think you said you had submitted a question a while back, but you couldn't remember if it was you. This is exactly the situation I'm talking about, because you can run into whatever that issue is sitting at your desk, submit it over to us, and it's still going to come back. That boomerang will always find you when you bookmark it. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we have coming up. Dave, would you like to mention anything about the annual meeting? I'm going to tell everyone what we just finished at the International Institute, but there's kind of this topic that kind of blends all of it together. Can you think of anything that ties together the upcoming annual meeting and these international institutes that we just did?
Absolutely. Thanks, Drew. There will be kind of a, what would you call, parallel instance of the International Institute in the form of a pre-conference workshop at the annual meeting. Annual meeting is slated for 27th through the 29th of March in Aurora, Colorado, but the first 2 days really of the weekend, so the 25th and the 26th, there will be a pre-conference workshop on credential evaluation. And this one is focusing on India and China. Leslie Klausen-Eicher, who is here with us, and Julia Funaki, who had to leave us but gave the intro, will be the faculty for that one. Incidentally, last year I was able to kind of be a fly on the wall at that session, and over the 2 days it was really remarkable how many relationships and kind of collegial connections were made. I know that people just started breaking off into groups and talking about what they did in their own institutions, and I learned a lot just from listening to them. So it's this is kind of the best scenario where you're really allowed to work together in groups along with getting some of the instruction, and so it's a really good thing. You can still register for it if you are going to annual meeting. You can always tack it on if you haven't already. We just finished with International Institute, and I think, Drew, you're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that for folks that were here with us in DC, it was a great little 4-day gathering. I was only able to make it down for one of the days, but Robert Watkins, who's here on the call with us today, he was one of our faculty that was there providing instruction. Jasmine, you mentioned difficulty in pronouncing that Danish credential. One of my favorite parts of when I was there was listening to Alex Morawski pronounce Polish credentials in his native tongue. It was I've never heard Polish spoken aloud more than like one word at a time, and boy, I do not recognize Polish when I heard it spoken aloud. Robert, do you have anything that you want to share about some of the great insights, like from International Institute?
I echo what you said about the Polish, because you've seen so many Polish credentials, and in the original Polish language written out, you then try to sound it out and try to pretend that you can pronounce it. And then when Alex pronounces it, it was just amazing. But it was a good group. This was our first institute back in person. It was there in DC, in the DuPont Circle area, or just off DuPont, and where ACRO used to be headquartered. And it's going to be there again in July. It's very convenient to all kinds of things. So I would encourage you to do it. We have plans to send a couple of our people, relatively new people. They've got a year or so experience, but I want them to hear someone besides me. And so we'll have them come, but it's a great experience. You really learn a lot, and the folks clearly made it clear that they were really coming away with some great information, answers to questions, help on credentials they brought with them, all that kind of thing. So I encourage you strongly to consider it. It will be again July 17th through 20 there in DC, and I just recommend it highly. I'll be there along with several of the other folks from this past February.
And if y'all are going to be coming for the pre-conference workshop just before the annual meeting in Colorado, there is going to be a focus on Chinese and Indian credentials, in addition to some other foundational stuff. So just wanted to mention that the Chinese and Indian credentials, there will be topics at both the undergraduate and graduate level discussion. I think that's going to be going on. Leslie, correct me if I need to make any changes there. But
No, Dewey, that sounds perfect. Yep.
That's what I've understood from Annetta, that we're going in so that whatever level you are at, we're going to have something to add for you. And so on the next slide, we just remind all of you that we are going to be having the annual meeting. And a couple of the specific sessions are up there that you can look at. Also, don't forget, come see me. I'll be there. It's on Monday. Robert, you got a couple of presentations. Emily, you got a couple presentations. Dave, you got a couple presentations. There's going to be a lot of people that are on this Edge user group that you're going to be able to come and talk to. You got anything in particular you want people to come see, Robert?
Emily and I are going to do when is a degree not a degree? And I touched on it a little bit at the Institute when I covered France for the group there. It's somewhat higher level, but it's certainly not beginning level when we talk about degrees that are awarded by institutions that don't have official validity. And so I would just encourage you to come to that. It's always fun listening to Emily. She's got so much information to give out.
Emily's position where she gets to see all of the credentials on a regular basis has got to be just a lot of fun to be able to pull all that knowledge out of. And on the next slide, we just talked just a little bit more. We like to remind everyone that if you are interested in doing some research and contributing to the field, we do want to help support you with that. The Gloria R. Nathanson Research Fund is a great way to do that. And if you're thinking about writing something, please reach out to us with a little bit and we'll give you more information on that. And then don't want to delay any further. Do we have any questions? Dave, I think you might have been voluntold to monitor the Q&A today.
Absolutely. Well, I think that I volunteered with some alacrity here, but anyway, we're going to go. Is it time to do questions right now? Can we go ahead?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
Right.
We can do the questions.
Let's do it. The first question we had, which Leslie already answered in writing, involved the Joint Universities.
The Joint Universities Preliminary Examinations Board from Nigeria.
Yeah. And we're gonna open it up to any panelists or people that want to weigh in, but just in general, as I recall it, this is a consortium of Nigerian universities that got together to provide an alternate way for university entrance. And so I think if you've done a foundation year or a year in a diploma program, post-secondary level, you take this advanced certificate by the JUPEB, and you get the direct entry into the 200 level course, which is what Leslie has intimated also in her response. So the question is, do institutions accept this in lieu of A levels? And anybody who wants to pipe in, feel free. Robert.
Yeah, Dave. I say no, and let me give you two reasons. Number one, I tend to be somewhat conservative on this more so than others, but with me and A levels, I'm not interested in if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, acts like a duck, must be a duck. It has to be an A level. Things that are supposedly as good as or meant to be equivalent to from another source, I have grave reservations about. And so I generally don't award credit for those because I know A levels and I don't know these other things. Also, and this is probably where I'm more conservative, certainly than my credential evaluation colleagues. I don't even give credit for UK level 3 certificates and diplomas in some technical or professional field. Even though they're at the same level as A levels. The second thing is that Nigeria has a 12-year system. UK has a 13-year system. What Nigeria has done here is produce something that they're claiming is comparable to an A level, but it does not transcend their 12-year system. Now, if you were at the British school in Lagos, if there is one, and you did A levels back in the UK or through Cambridge IE, then I say, okay, fine, that's an A level, yeah, but it's not a Nigerian product. And I'm just saying that this is a Nigerian product created in a 12-year system, and there's no compelling reason to give credit.
Thank you. The credential evaluators who don't work for colleges or universities are probably silently wondering where they're going to come up with a 4th year of credit when they are presented with a bachelor's degree from U of Lagos that used the advanced certificate for admission. But we don't have to go into that today. We have more. Let's see. Next question. We have Nigerian applicants who are able to provide an official physical copy of their transcripts, but not their degree certificates. For admissions, we usually ask for a physical copy, et cetera, et cetera. What recommendations do you have for this kind of situation? Who wants to weigh in on that one? Don't make me call on someone.
Dave, I'll take a shot.
Thanks, Jasmine.
For our applicants from Nigeria, we routinely ask them to request to have their official documents sent to us directly. So the universities will release a transcript, and usually attached to that transcript is a letter or certificate that attests that a degree was awarded and the date of its award. The transcripts will also identify the title of the degree and the date it was awarded. But we make no exceptions. All our Nigerian students have to request to have their documents sent to us directly from their institutions. So that does not pose a problem for us. So we receive their certificates or statement of graduation and degree title that was awarded.
Okay, thanks, Jasmine.
Yeah, same here. Also, we require that they be sent direct, and sometimes the transcripts don't include the degree graduation information, and if that's the case, we ask for a certified copy of the degree certificate or statement of graduation, as Jasmine mentioned, and that's a non-issue. And of course, if it's the WIAC WASC, then we can get that verified online with the scratch cards or PIN numbers, but otherwise it has to come direct from Nigeria.
Okay. Robert, were you going to weigh in on this also?
We just a reminder again. I think I've said it before in these things that we begin our process with uploads from the applicant, so it's not an official document anyway. They're uploading it from home or wherever, school, and if they are admitted, and if they decide to enroll, then they need to bring the official document that they uploaded that got them admitted, and then we'll take a look at it and see. It need not come directly from Nigeria. I understand all that, and I understand the reasons for those kinds of policies, but we're going to take a chance that we can spot the bad stuff and move forward. But again, it would only be admitted people who've decided to enroll at UT Austin.
I'd like to add something there, if I could. Robert, at Seattle U, we do the same thing. We allow students to go through the admission and evaluation process with unofficial records, and then in their first quarter, they have to bring official or original documents to our office or arrange to have them sent to our office. My question, I've always been uncomfortable with that. But my question to anyone out there who requires students to, especially Nigerian students, to have their documents sent directly to you from the issuing body, do they push back? Is it hard for them to get these documents sent directly? Ina says, no, not hard at all. Ina, are you talking about secondary documents or university level documents? All of them. Thank you for that. Alyssa, thanks, agrees with her. Lots of people are saying, no, it's not hard. They can get them. I have never had any issue with secondary documents being sent directly from WIAC. Yeah, I have to say I work in graduate admissions, so I'm talking about university level documents. Pushback related to other things. Usually not the school. Yeah, and there was a comment. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time scrolling to it, but the comment was made, if they can't then bring you original or official documents in their first quarter, do you kick them out? I think was the question. Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think we've been in that situation yet. But when I discuss this with my colleagues, that's one of the scenarios that I talk about. You know, are we willing to stand firm on that? Yeah, I don't think kick them out is something we would do, but we don't allow them to register.
All right, thanks everyone. Jasmine has addressed the Hala University recognition question in Korea, so we can go on to the Philippines. The question is, for graduate admission, how does one differentiate between post-secondary institutions in terms of quality when there's a pretty large range in the quality? Before we open it up to the panel, you have the PAKUKUA and the other, accreditation mechanisms in the Philippines. You still have a special order number from the CHED, which I mean is a sort of recognition of a basic amount of quality. And in terms of the state universities that are exempted from the special order requirement, there's programmatic accreditation on top of that for most programs that you can, so you can go down through the layers similarly to the way you can do it in the US. Just anecdotally, you know which institutions are the smaller ones and which are the the mainstream ones. I think just from past experience sometimes, but I would just add that many universities, especially after the Second World War, did get their start as secondary institutions. That doesn't always have a bearing on the quality, because some of them have grown to be quite large and influential. So anybody else have anything to add to the Philippine quality question? Robert.
Of course, I was there on the Philippine workshop in '99 that came out in 2001. And, there were a lot then, there's even more now. Qualities all over the place, like India, qualities sort of all over the place. There is that overarching body. In the case of India, it's UGC, or depending on other types of institutions, AICTE. And in the Philippines, it's CHED. CHED was created in '94 out of the Department of Education, Culture and Sports, DEX, that oversaw all education, now just oversees the lower levels. Post-secondary or higher education is overseen by the Commission on Higher Education, CHED. And there was concern about corruption. And so that's why CHED was created. CHED, of course, issues, like you say, memo orders so that every institution, public or private, must adhere to the memo order number, and they've changed over time, 99, 100, whatever, in which it specifies this is what a BA in sociology will look like. This is what it should be composed of. This is what faculty should be teaching. And these are the qualifications faculty who teach this must have. And so there's an attempt to sort of add that to it. But I mean, it's clear that there are institutions that are much better than others. Most of the campuses of the UP system and several of the privates are usually Catholic oriented or absolutely fabulous. When I would do a lot, I used to do physical therapy evaluations for the state board here. Our office did, and I got out of that. But you could see sometimes differences when they would start at a place like Santo Tomas, and where the grading was severe, and then they would go to another institution, and suddenly their grades leaped up. And so you know that there's some quality differentials out there. When we visited some of the institutions, it was clear that some are fabulously resourced, whereas others are not. Libraries tend to be, we were there 99, some of the better libraries even seem to have books that ended around the late 80s and so on. So they were about a decade old, with some exceptions. So, quality varies. It really does. But CHED does oversee and does what it can to try to make sure that certain minimal levels of quality are there. Don't forget, and I'll conclude with this, don't forget that in the case of the professional degree programs, nursing, accounting, et cetera, there are 42, there's probably more now, 42 professional licensing boards that after you get your degree from the university, you must then take the exam in nursing, in accounting, in whatever, and pass, and then you're allowed to practice. And they keep very stringent records of the passing rates of various institutions. And when various institutions start to fall below a certain level, then they warn them, and then they're not above shutting them down if they need to.
All right, thank you. That probably covers the Philippines. The next question involves someone who did standard 9 and 10 in India and then took the US GED exam. The questioner admitted that student wonders how others would have handled it, and says, furthermore, the GED scores are the highest they'd seen in about 5 years. That happens. I mean, there are a lot of high school graduates who can go into the junior year of college without suffering. There are a lot of people who have completed the sophomore year of college who could probably handle graduate study. It's just and here we have an outside measurement for the GED. I assume that admission was based really on the GED, and that's pretty standard. But if anybody else has anything to add, feel free to come live onto the circuit.
Sure, Dave, I'll jump in as another institution. First of all, we're a highly selective institution, and we have a very stringent, I'd say severe, GED policy. You have to be a Texas resident, 21 years of age or older. Now this is pre-COVID. You had to have an SAT that better be pretty high. You need to submit your GED results and the results of your high school up to the point you left. So ours is pretty draconian. As far as the exam results on that GED were concerned that the individual noticed, I would just remind them that India is very much an exam-driven country, an educational system. so that you expect to see Indians perform well. You know, so long as English is not the problem, you will see them perform very well in any kind of examination situation. That's true whether it's SAT, GRE, GMAT, GED, what have you, and so on. So I would just remind you that. But we would probably not admit this individual for the reasons I stated at the beginning regarding our GED policy. But you know, again, we're a different sort of institution.
Whoops, I was muted. Sorry. Thank you to Robert for that. Next question has just come in. Person new to the role, do you accept WAEC, West African Examinations Council? WAEC is the real deal as far as the exit exams for Nigeria. So I'm assuming people would. There are a lot of kind of add-on layers that people do in terms of requiring the scratch cards or other electronic verification that the results are real. Anybody want to jump in and talk about how they approach basic West African Examination Council results?
I would
Robert, you're getting a workout.
I would just add that you know, that is the key. The courses are not important. Don't be looking at the courses and the grades earned year for year. You're really looking for that exam. It's an exam-driven system, and that's what the universities that they're heading toward in country are looking at. So I would encourage you to think only in terms of WAC for at least the 5 West African countries that are involved with WAC, and view the results of those examinations as kind of your gold standard to go by. There's, you know, Dave's mentioned this scratch card system, so there's means of verification, but that's the real key. I would add that, and we probably don't have enough time to get into this much. We can do it perhaps as a topic in a future webinar, but NICO in Nigeria is a second possibility. NICO is accepted by all universities National Examinations Council is accepted by all Nigerian universities, but not necessarily by outside universities in other countries. So that's the issue with NICO, and there's been all sorts of stories swirling around it. WAAC's been around since the 50s, NICO since only the 90s. So you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and I think we also had a comment in the chat, you know, as far as documentation, what do you require from a Nigerian student? Well, I in a past role, I work in graduate admissions now, so I'm not dealing with these, but in a past role, I would have accepted a photocopy or a scan of the actual certificate. There are numbers on there that you need in order to use the scratch card and the web verification system. And I think that, yeah, the portal is very good. It gives you a copy of the certificate and verification, not only of the classes that the student passed, but the ones that they failed as well, which you don't see on the actual certificate. The reason that the West African countries created this verification system is because they knew that they had a problem with fraud. And so we do trust this system for verification, but we always recommend that you request the scratch card so that you can verify the documents. If you've never used a scratch card, ask a colleague. They're very widely used. There are also conference presentations where the presenter will show you exactly how to use it. So.
Thanks, Leslie. We have run to the bottom of the question list. So unless anything is coming in real soon, I think that we'll move on to the next portion.
Yeah, it sounds good, Dave. That's we had a pretty robust discussion about a few things right there. On the next slide, we've just got a couple of like a slide that you can take a picture of this QR code and link yourself right over to where we have all of our webinars archived. If you want to go back, see anything that we've said in the past, if you want to do a little bit more research on other topics, those ACRO webinars, they are free for you. Go ahead, find the information, search through. There are lots of great ones on international topics, as well as other things that might be of interest to strategic enrollment management professionals, registrars, admissions officers, all kinds of stuff. But there's lots in there for you as well. Like I said, free, go check it out. And on the last page that we have today, just wanted to remind you that you can sign up for free for Connect if you want to get updates as to what ACRO is doing. Sign up for the International Activities Group, free to connect with all your colleagues, where you can ask questions that you run into, and you can give your expertise to people that are reaching out that need a little bit of help, don't really know where to get started. It is a wonderful way that you can contribute. All of you are really experts in your field. You're learning more and more, and we want you to be able to have that confidence to support your colleagues as well. So join that International Activities Group and contribute and join that conversation. And other than that, I guess I'll just say, come to Colorado. Looking forward to having the meeting there, and really thanks for coming back. We know that that EDGE is valuable for you. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of that today. So without any additional delay, I give you back the gift of time. Enjoy these last 3 minutes of the hour. And Leslie, what would you like to say to everybody?
I was just getting ready to say goodbye and thanks for coming.
Hey,
Great
thank you so much.
conversation.
All right. And with that, see you in Colorado. Bye, y'all.